a million of these debates. I'm sure we'll give them an opening and a closing statement. We'll give them a minute or two to answer. We'll give them rebuttal time. If you ever watch the debates that I have moderated, if you got two candidates going at it good, I let them go at it good. But I do control the debates, as I've done in the past. Not like Chris Wallace. I would have handled Trump and Biden a lot better than he did. But I would have let them go after each other because, you need a debate to be informative, talking about the issues, but it has to be entertaining. If it is boring, you're going to turn the channel. Hopefully, you have not voted early. I've been asking everybody to hold off until you see your presidential debates, and of course, the Ward D debate here. You got the school board, there's congressional seats, there's a lot of seats in this election. And you need to get all the information to make an informed vote. So hopefully, you didn't vote early. And it's going to take a long time to finalize these elections. And as I said before, I firmly believe a lot of this will be going to the courts. Got to get used to this mic here. There we go. I keep hitting this. What I expect of my Ward D person, again, 1 and 9. I expect them to be a champion of causes and issues that are facing the city, or Ward D. I hope they would advocate for these issues that are facing Ward D. They will, question policy and programs from the city of Jersey City. Again, keeping in mind, they are 1 of 9. It's not like we're talking the mayor here. I'm going to try to stay away from taxes in Jersey City because there's 3 points to ours. You got the city tax, you got the county tax, and you got the school tax that just got jumped 47%. There's not a lot that one individual can do, especially with the school and the county, separate governmental bodies. Affordable housing, there are many ideas on how to handle affordable housing. Again, they're 1 of 9. I firmly believe if we can make the city affordable, we can have affordable housing. When we were of our younger days, if you recall, the city and the state and the feds used to create affordable housing. A lot of that started right after World War II, and it continued on through the 60s and 70s. We didn't depend on private industry to create affordable housing. That's what we're doing now, setting aside 10 and 20% for X amount of years that would be affordable, provided they get an abatement. Like I said, in the old days, the government created affordable housing. But these are some of the issues that I think you'll be hearing and questions in this debate. Now, Ward D is the Jersey City Heights. So what is one of the biggest issues in the Jersey City Heights? Well, that would be parking. It is always an issue, and it's becoming a greater and greater issue. Jersey City is great at eliminating parking. We're not very good at creating parking. Little North Bergen, in the land of Mayor Sacco, they have more municipal parking than we have in Jersey City. They are forever creating municipal parking. And there is no size lot that is off the table for North Bergen. They just took a lot just past the Coach House on Patterson Lake Road. That's about 12 spots in there, municipal lot. It improves your quality of life. And, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit at the end of this. Jersey City either sells or builds on our municipal lots. They sold the lots on 5 corners. There's a project that's going to be built in the Heights on the Burger King parking lot. That's a very big parking lot behind the Burger King. There will be a large residential building with a retail component and parking supposedly for 400 cars. Keep in mind, the people that will be living in that residential part of that development will be getting parking spots. So I'm not sure we're gaining any parking spots there. The new North Precinct that will eventually be built on Central Avenue will be built on a parking lot, a municipal parking lot. So we continue to exasperate the parking situation in Jersey City. Plus, we put in all the Vision Zero implements of parking where we're cutting off parking from the corners. I am born and raised in Jersey City, especially in the Heights. I've been in the Heights since I got married 42 years ago. I moved up from God's country, Dogpatch, Jersey City. That's at the foot of St. Paul's Avenue by the Hackensack River, right over the tracks. And I've been in the Heights for 42 years. Whatever parking you could do in the Heights was legitimate parking. And now we're putting those boulder rods in, bump outs and all. We managed to go through the history of Jersey City without that. I'm not going to knock safety, but again, we lose parking. Jersey City needs to create some off-street parking. Stop selling our off-street parking would also be good. So we need a council person who's going to advocate for that. Whether it's vacant lots or we buy some lots or buildings that we can knock down to create pocket parking. That's what North Bergen does. They build a lot of those small lots, 10, 12 spots, some larger lots. The cookie cutter homes that we see being built all over, they are taking away on-street parking. They put the driveway there. That's a parking spot that is forever out of the rotation when that driveway hits there. And we have more and more of those going up in Jersey City. On my block alone, Congress Street, we have 3 of them in construction right now. And the way they are situated, those 3, and guess what? They're being built on what was parking lots, but they were private lots. The city should have bought them. I had spoken to the former Ward D councilman about purchasing those lots, and that didn't happen. We have 3 buildings going up on my block now on Congress Street. And when all's said and done, we will probably forget about the parking lots we lost. That put about 15 to 18 cars on the street. We will lose, because of the driveways and the way the houses are situated, probably about 6 on-street parking spots. That's extremely tough. And those cookie-cutter homes, they get the driveways. There is a ban on carports that have been in place, I think, since the 80s. There is an issue when you own a piece of property that's existing. You didn't have a driveway because at one time there was parking in Jersey City, and somebody builds a house next door to you. They can have a driveway, but you can't. That's wrong. If you have the footage in front of your home to have a driveway, you should be able to get it. If that person who built the house next to your home can have a driveway, you should be entitled, as long as you got enough footage in front to have that. Parking is essential. We are Jersey City people. We drive, especially in the Heights, but actually any part. If you look at downtown Jersey City, Soho West, as they call it, where they keep building these high-rises, and they keep saying, well, we don't need a lot of parking down here because they're moving from New York City and they don't have cars. As soon as they get here, they buy cars. Take a ride on Hoboken Avenue behind Christ Hospital and see how many cars are parked on Hoboken Avenue, where at a time there was no cars parked on Hoboken Avenue. When you come home from work, or you went out for dinner, you come back from school, you went shopping, you went to a civic meeting, whatever it is, you want to be able to park. You don't, and also, you don't want to be a shut-in in your home. You got home, you had dinner, and you may were thinking about going food shopping. So I can't go. I'll lose a parking spot. I won't be able to park. That's an issue here. Second one, Jersey City is building a public safety building on MLK Drive. It's an 8-story. Mayor Fulop is making a huge investment in the southern portion of Jersey City, and I completely applaud him for that. The problem is the public safety building, the Jersey City parking enforcement, is under public safety. So there is a real good chance that the Jersey City enforcement will move off of Central Avenue. I've had conversations with Mayor Fulop concerning this. Jersey City enforcement, or as we know it, the Jersey City Parking Authority, is a major draw of foot traffic. There are lines and lines of people every day going to the Jersey City parking enforcement. Whatever the reasons are, permits, boots, whatever the case is, they're going there every day, and they're on Central Avenue. And when they're on Central Avenue, once they get their permit or take care of their business, whatever it is, they're stopping, they're getting a Blimpie, or they're stopping at the Sweet Pineapple, they're looking in the windows at their eyeglass place, whatever it is. They are on Central Avenue, and they're walking, they're looking at the windows, they're seeing those businesses. You look at Journal Square. When we took foot traffic off the square, when we built the Path Building, that was a dagger into Journal Square. In the old days, the buses were on the square, right across from the Lowe's Theater, for that matter. When they went in that Path Center, it was like a gerbil existence. People got off the train, got on the bus, off. In the old days, you got off the tubes. And yes, I remember the tubes. You got on the bus, but you walked along Journal Square, and you did some shopping. It was an economic engine for Journal Square, to Jersey City, then Journal Square. When they built the Path Center, that was it. All the stores were gone. It changed. There was no longer foot traffic. Move the Jersey City parking enforcement, it will do the same thing. You will lose all that foot traffic. I know one of the council candidates said, well, they're building a new police station. They don't draw the same kind of foot traffic the parking authority does. The people that go to that police station aren't thinking about shopping. Jersey City staying on Central Avenue, in my opinion, is a must. I need a council person that's going to fight for that. Illegal apartments in Jersey City. Whoa, they've been there forever. And they're still there. They're still in huge numbers. And probably the highest concentration of illegal apartments anywhere. You only hear about the illegal apartments when there is an issue, where there's a fire or a landlord locked somebody out, or somebody finally said, there's 27 people living in that upstairs apartment. That's when you hear about it. There are a huge amount of frauds that are committed when there are illegal apartments. There is bank fraud. You're not telling the bank you got a legal apartment. And even the new buildings we're building, they're built with the legal apartments. The cookie cutters. There's bank fraud, there's insurance fraud, there's tax fraud, because you're not telling the city or the state you got a 3 or 4 family when you're on the books for a 2. New construction that's going on, we need inspections. I don't recall seeing an inspector. And on my block, I've already battled with a lot of these buildings for the proper setbacks, but variances are issued. Why go through a master plan and have these variances in place, zoning in place, when you get a variance 1, 2, 3? I don't know how many times I have gone to bat for setbacks and staying in the reason of zoning that we had, and actually had builders call the cops on me. We don't have inspectors doing that. We need to get more people doing inspections. Also, you take my block. I live on Congress Street in Jersey City. We just paved my block about 6 weeks ago. You wouldn't know it now because we have chopped it up. Because of those new houses, it's a quilt on Congress Street now. Now, nobody went curb to curb, which is our law in Jersey City. If you're going to dig up a water main or something like that, you got to go curb to curb. It did not happen on a brand new paved street. Now, I see it. I'm sure people in the city see it if we have inspectors. And those patches they did, they're going to be bad backfills. That's one of the problems we have in Jersey City is bad backfills. You want to talk about potholes? Most of our potholes are bad backfills. We don't enforce anything. We don't enforce the 2-family zoning. We're building homes that have bonus apartments. We don't enforce the curb to curb when they dig up a street. In my case, it's a brand new street. We just paved it like 6 weeks ago. We need to enforce that. This is something the council person can do. I need a council person who will go down to the department and say, why aren't we doing this? Again, they're 1 of 9, but a council person can make a difference in everything I'm talking about here. Trash and recycling. In the Heights, it is awful. We have a horrible vendor who is doing our trash and recycling. But if you recall, it's the only option we had. I would appreciate it if this company would get the garbage and the recyclables in the truck. Hard for them to do. They drop it all over the place. No option. Remember that? I think we gave them like a $5 million contract. We had no option. There was nobody else. Yes, there are other things. You can make your option. The city has stopped relying on one vendor because you're held hostage that way. We have a transfer station in Jersey City on Route 1 and 9, just off Broadway, interstate waste. We have an option. We could have worked something there. Orrin Dabney and Glenn D. Cunningham, the ex-mayor, were looking at going back into us picking up our own trash. We used to do that, but now we outsource everything. We should go back to doing that. If we can't work something out with a Jersey City-based company that's right here on Route 1 and 9, then something's wrong. What was wrong here is nobody bothered to do it. That's where a councilman can make a difference. No option, all we got now is bad service. All right, let me take a break. Let me put the panel up reminding you of what's going on tonight. Please put the panel up. I'm back. Pat O'Melia here, Ward D election special. It's going to come follow me right at 6 o'clock. City services. The MUA just jacked your tax bill, your fee bill rather, 18%, 9 on the water, 9 on the sewage. You know, at one time there was a Jersey City Department of Water? Yes. We outsourced it. We made the MUA, an autonomous agency. Suez runs our water department. Suez makes a lot of money on our water. You just got hit with an 18% increase, and Suez is still cashing checks. And they're going to be cashing checks. That's something we need to get back into. I need a council person who's going to champion that, advocate for that. Why are we letting Suez make big money on our water and charging you 18%? That's wrong. City services, we outsource everything. You know, whether it's the water department, trash collection, everything used to be done at in-house. The answer to our present is in our past. We did our own garbage collection. Our neighboring cities do their own pickups. We don't, and the argument is, well, we're big. Well, everything's relative. Whether it's North Bergen or Union City, not as big as us, but when they look at their budget, everything is relative. They can do it, we can do it. If we're paying somebody $5 million to pick up our garbage, or Suez is making millions on our water, we should be doing this ourselves. We're creating jobs, we're controlling it, we're handling it. We can make sure that the garbage isn't dropped in front of your house. We can make sure your water rates are stable. We outsource everything in Jersey City. Something a councilman needs to do. We do road projects, road paving. We don't do it ourselves. We cut a contract for $11-12 million to get road paving. We used to do this. DPW used to do that stuff. I don't even know what DPW does anymore. If we put swings in a park, we outsource it. If we pave a street, we outsource it. We're capable of doing this with supervision. We can do that. And I'm going to get to shared services. If we had the equipment to do that, we could probably make money on the county and then the other neighboring cities. But we don't do anything ourselves outside of writing a check. And that's your tax money. We're not doing the best we can with your tax money because we're taking the easy way. Just write a check. This person's making a lot of money on our road project. And you're paying for it. That's unfortunate. Shared services. We don't share service with anything in Jersey City. I can't think of one department, one thing we share with Hoboken or Bayonne or the county of Hudson. But we have a tremendous amount of redundancy, especially when you talk about the county of Hudson. Jersey City is the big city, the county seat in Hudson County. We're probably, after this census, the largest city in the state. I'm sure we'll overtake Newark. There is a tremendous amount of redundancy that you pay for. Any redundancy between the city of Jersey City and the county of Hudson, you're paying for. It's in your tax bill. Your tax bill is in three parts: city, county, school. Now, Fulop was going to go after the school board by appointed, but he's sitting on that now. Should have done that with 40% increase. Parks. We have a parks department, part of DPW. Forestry, we got that as part of DPW. County has that. They're in the same city. They're departments. Why would we have redundancy like that? You're paying for that redundancy. You are. Roads. And like I said before, we can pave our own roads. We can do that. Save the taxpayers money. Like I said, when a contractor's paving that street, they're making money on it. They're not doing it for break even. They're making money on it. That's your money they're making the profit on. We should be doing that ourselves, and we used to do that. Cultural affairs. We got a cultural affairs in Jersey City. So does the county of Hudson. At one time, Mayor Fulop talked about this, about the redundancy. I don't know what happened with that, but I need a council person that will go back to that and say, wait a minute. You know, over on Newark Avenue, they got a cultural affairs. We got a cultural affairs. And we're paying money, salaries and benefits and pensions. And that we, by the way, is you. So that's something we need a councilman to champion and advocate. Health departments. We got a health department. They got a health department. Right now, I'm looking at the county. But again, Hoboken's got one. Bayonne's got one. Union City's got one. North Bergen's got one. Somehow, we need to work together in an effort to cut your taxes. At least make Jersey City affordable. We talk about affordable housing. One sure way to do it, if we can make it affordable here. Senior services. We have senior services. The county has senior services. Hoboken has senior services. Bayonne has senior services. We all got senior services. And we all got payrolls. We all got pensions involved. We all got benefits involved. We all got health benefits involved. We're all doing the same thing within like 10 minutes of each other. Again, I look strictly at the county, but we can work something out with Hoboken. We can work something out with Bayonne. Maybe we get paid for doing some of that, or that we can work together. But the whole thing is cutting the reliance on your tax dollars to do this. That's what we need. It is getting so expensive in Jersey City, and in the state in particular, but in Jersey City is what we're concentrating on now. You know, you got a Hudson County Economic Development Corporation. We got a Jersey City EDC. Do we need two? They're like blocks away from each other. You're paying for that. There are salaries, there are pensions, there are benefits. You're paying for all that. When you get your county bill, you pay for that. You wrote that check for tax, you're paying for that, city and a county. HCIA, the Improvement Authority. You know what they deal with? Trash. Norman Guerrero used to be the guy that did the trash contracts. We can't find an option, but there's the Hudson County Improvement Authority, where Norman Guerrero was one of the wisest men when it comes to trash and recycling. We have no option. There's an option. Anybody call Norman? Say, listen, we have no choice. We've got to give these people $5 million of our taxpayers' money. Yes, there's options. You have to seek out those options sometimes, and that wasn't done. That's something a council person can make a difference with. And I think we, the five we have, and three of them I know. Like I said, I know Pat somewhat. Because Cynthia and I go back with a long way. We serve on boards together. Youssef, since he's become the Ward D councilman by appointment, I've worked with him on issues. But everything I'm talking about here, you pay for. So these are some of the questions I want to hear. How we can make Jersey City affordable, how we can get you more city services, and how we can get the city can get their hands out of your pocket, along with the county. Now, we all talk about shared services, just never happens. These are some of the topics we need to hear in this debate. These are some of the questions that have to be posed. Now, in about 5 minutes, the Ward D special election debate will start. Please watch it, and hopefully we can inform you and entertain you. I'm Pat O'Melia. Be good.
So I'm excited to have
Go ahead. Raise this physically up a little bit.
Will I be able to look at it or see myself as I talk?
Yeah.
Phones off. Phones off, everybody.
Hudson County View, and today I'm going to be moderating a debate for the Jersey City Ward D Special Council election. So we have invited all 5 candidates on the ballot. Only 3 are going to be participating this evening. So with that, I'm just going to read some cursory rules for those watching and for those participating. So everyone will have a 2-minute opening and closing statement. Then there'll be 1 minute to answer, as well as 1 minute for rebuttals. And I will try to get involved if I have to. Hopefully we can have a good, clean fight, though. With that said, we're going to get straight to the opening, so we'll start from left to right. So Patrick, you could lead us off.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick Ambrosi. I am a lifelong Jersey City resident, a product of PS 28, County Prep High School, Montclair State University, and I have a master's in public administration from St. Peter's University. I work as a fiscal analyst for the Division of Housing and Community Development, where our office funds the building of affordable housing units, as well as funds youth enrichment programs and helps fund our homeless shelters throughout Hudson County. But I'm also a very involved member of our community. I'm the founder of Leonard Gordon Park Conservancy, a former board member of the Jersey City Reservoir Preservation Alliance, a member of the Hudson County Young Duns, and in 2015, I served as an AmeriCorps Vista, where I was instrumental in the creations of JC Shovels, which is a volunteer program that looks to help low-income seniors with snow shoveling, as well as the Great Jersey City Cleanup, which is a one-day citywide cleanup that mobilized city agencies and hundreds of thousands of residents and organizations. I'm running for Ward D City Council because I believe Ward D needs a leader that's committed to making sure that we address our lack of affordability and improve the lives of our residents. Please remember, my ballot position is 1L. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Cynthia, please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay. Hi, my name's Cynthia Hadjianis. I'm running in this special election for the Ward D council person to fill out the remaining term of Michael Yun's 4-year term after he sadly passed away. I'm not going to go into my whole background. It's on my website if you'd like to check it out. It's www.cynthiafortheheights.org. And I think this is kind of an interesting race. It's very unlike the national races where there are very clear differences between the candidates. And here, I think the challenge for the voters and for the candidates is to try to tell the difference between who we are and what we are capable of doing once we're on the council. And I think all three of us sound well-intentioned, we sound friendly, we're all participating in these forums and these debates, and we're all trying to say the right things that sound good. And but what is the real difference between me and the other two people who are here tonight? The difference is that I have experience, and if I get on the council, it is very challenging, and I think Michael Yun had this challenge. It's a big bureaucracy you're dealing with. Sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. How do you get things to happen? How do you get this bureaucracy to function? And I've done it before. I've done it when I haven't even been on the council. I helped save Reservoir 3. I helped get a redeveloper pay-to-play ordinance through. I've worked in partnership with the city to attract a ton of funding to the reservoir, $2.2 million. And I've done it, and I've also stood up for things that matter, things that are important. So please consider casting your ballot for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Saleh, please.
Thank you so much, John Heinis, Pat O'Melia, and everyone watching at home. I'm Councilman Yusef J. Saleh. I was appointed during the height of the pandemic, and we are still trying to flatten the curve. And since I've been your councilman, we worked with the health department to get coronavirus tests out to residents to help save the businesses, and we canvassed the area and gave out up to $20,000 in grants. We've been beautifying our parks. We're investing in Central Avenue. We're building a parking deck. We're doing a lot of exciting things here in the Heights, and I'm excited to continue doing the job. And I want you to vote for me, Yusef Saleh, 1M. I'm working alongside Mayor Fulop and the entire City Council to help get us through this unprecedented crisis that we've been dealing with this year. And with your help and with your vote, I can continue doing the good work of the people of the Heights. I am a product of this community, and I was born and raised in the Heights. I'm one of 8 with 7 sisters, and we're all from the Heights. And I would really appreciate if you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So with that, I think we're ready for our first question, and continuing going left to right, we'll start with Cynthia, then Councilman Saleh, and then Patrick, and we'll keep rotating the order. So for the first question of the evening, we're going to talk about trash collection, actually. So my question to you guys is, what do you think of the possibility of Jersey City possibly bringing garbage collection services in-house like Union City and North Bergen do?
Yeah, well, I mean, my first comment about trash is that if the most trash I'm seeing right now on the street is people's campaign literature everywhere. So I think we could cut down on the problem if there was less of that around. But yeah, I think it's not a bad idea. I've had a lot of constituents comment, or possibly my constituents comment that as soon as you cross the border from Jersey City into Union City, you go to Weehawken, things look different, things look better. Why is that? And I thought it was just litter bugs, and I thought the issue might be more enforcement, but people have been telling me that it really is the way the trash is being collected. They're sort of leaving a trail as they go, and we're also paying a lot for that. So I think we could save money and probably get a better job if we brought it in-house.
All right, thank you. And Councilman, what do you think?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that question because I've been doing a lot of research on this topic, and all the trash that I see has triggered my OCD, just like everyone here in the Heights. And I've looked at this proposal to go in-house. I went to Paterson, New Jersey, where they have their trash collection and their recycling services in-house. And they seem to have similar problems that we have, because you start to get issues with the trash collection and some people taking off. There's capacity issues. Then there's issues of how you're going to fund it with, you have to give everyone a government pension. You have to give them benefits. So my unique proposal that I brought forth in the City Council, and I put it out there on social media was to break out the RFPs, those are requests for proposals, into 6 different RFPs, because it seems that regional is the only one that bids when you
15
put out the
seconds.
request for proposal. So we want to break it out and get smaller garbage collection companies to come and bid for us so that they can handle the massive amount of trash. And we break out the city like that.
Thank you very much. And Patrick, what's your take on this?
So it's an issue that I think has been an issue throughout Jersey City for a long time now. And I know, for one, someone who has actually organized community cleanups, that it's something that, you know, it's yes, it's like Cynthia said, it's litter bugs, but at the same time, it's the fact that our garbage company isn't taking care of the garbage correctly and in the right way. So I do agree that we should actually have it in-house. I don't agree that, you know, dividing it up to 6 RFPs is going to be cheaper. Actually, it might even be more expensive. But the city council had it in their agenda a few months ago, whether or not to bring it in-house or not. And the council voted against it. So I think it's something that we should look at. It's something that we desperately need. And at the end of the day, if the issue is about salaries and pensions, we have a lot of people, a lot of manpower within the Department of Public Works. We can shuffle
10
people
seconds.
around. So yes, I definitely think that's something that we should be able to bring in-house.
Okay, any follow-up?
I think that's, you know, the council didn't reject the idea of bringing it in-house. We frankly don't have the capacity to do it. We would only have the manpower to do 1 ward at least, at the most. So that's why we had to continue with regional. We have to build that up. You can't just flick a switch and then you collect trash for our city. We are probably going to be the largest city after this 2020 census. So it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen in 1 budget cycle.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the next question then, and this time, Councilman, you could have the floor first. So what do you think of the current plan to move the parking authority off of Central Avenue and into the new proposed and public safety building on Martin Luther King Drive? Obviously, they have broken ground, but you know, we're still about a couple years from that opening. But nonetheless, what do you think of that plan?
Well, I would need to see the full details of this plan, because I personally like to have the parking authority here in the Heights. And if there is a legitimate reason to do it and it would benefit the Heights in some way, then I'd be for it. But I don't see how that's going to happen. So I'm a no for now, unless pending further information.
Okay, point taken. And Candidate Ambrosi, what's your thoughts on this?
So I think right now it's already difficult enough for Heights residents to get their permits. And so I would be against moving it. I think it should stay on Central Avenue. Similar, we'd have to find out what the plans are, where if there's going to be satellite offices for people to be able to get, you know, do their business in the parking enforcement. So as of now, I'm saying it's not a good idea to do.
Okay, very good. Go ahead, Cynthia, whenever you're ready.
I mean, I'm not sure I understand like why the physical location of the parking authority is so important. We're in an era where everybody's able to do things online. I see these long lines of people standing outside the parking authority. That just shouldn't even be the way we're doing business. You should be able to get your permit by applying online and have it sent to you in the mail. So I don't even know. I think there's probably a better way to do it in general, and it won't matter whether you're going to, you know, and then you won't have to worry about whether you're going somewhere on Central or whether you're going to MLK.
All right, and go ahead.
Well, I agree with Cynthia that, you know, we should definitely look to move our technology forward. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who either aren't internet savvy or don't own a computer. And so we want to make sure that we're, you know, meeting the needs of our residents from young to old to internet savvy to not very internet savvy. So I think for us right now, it's important to have the parking enforcement on Central Avenue.
Yes, Councilman.
I think that moving everything online, or even majority of it, would ignore the digital divide that we have here in the Jersey City Heights, you know, between low-income residents who are struggling to get internet access during this pandemic, and we've been trying to do that through the Jersey City Public Library. But I would be in favor of a proposal that put a satellite office in the new public safety building. So that would alleviate some of the stress on Central Avenue and the residents around wards A and F and C could go to that satellite office to get their parking permits.
So you guys may know that, or you may not. It doesn't matter that I live in the Heights, though. And when I'm talking to friends and neighbors, some people tell me when we're talking about the parking authority, they believe that this brings a lot of valuable foot traffic to Central Ave, which obviously is, been hit like everything else due to this public health emergency. So what do you think of that perspective? Is that a valid one? And we could start with Patrick on this.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear on the question.
Yeah.
The question is on the value of having the parking enforcement on Central Avenue and it helps bring foot traffic.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think as many businesses as we have on Central Avenue, and whether that's government offices or local cafes, anything that helps bring foot traffic to Central Avenue is desperately needed. I think you go on Central Avenue now, and fortunately it's littered. There's a couple of stores that have closed down, and I think it's going to be for good. And so what we really need to talk about in terms of foot traffic is creating a marketing plan for Central Avenue to see where it's going to go in the next 5 to 10 years and make sure that we're marketing for businesses that are going to come in and are able to stay and bring value to residents of the Heights.
Yes,
I
please.
mean, foot traffic's good. The more the better. I don't have too much to say.
Okay. Yes, please.
Okay. Well, there's about 1,500 people that work in the Heights, and about 500 of those individuals come from outside of the borders of the Heights. So there is a compelling case to have the headquarters there, although not all 500 are working at the parking authority. But that's why we are investing in the Central Avenue streetscape, which we approved during my tenure. Michael Youn had brought it to the finish line, and we hit the touchdown on it. We're spending up to $5 million essentially to redo the streetscape for Central Avenue. That's going to bring more foot traffic. It's going to be a boon for business, and it's going to spread prosperity throughout the Heights.
All right, thank you. Yes.
I definitely agree that Michael Youn did a lot of work with the streetscape project. However, I think that we need to really start setting up a marketing plan for Central Avenue, start setting up events in Central Avenue so that people can come in. It's not simply about just redesigning storefronts or the walkways. It's very nice, and I definitely appreciate it and would definitely vote for it. But we need to do something a little further than just fixing the physical look of Central Avenue.
Okay, very good. So we're going to move on now to a completely separate topic, and we'll start with Cynthia. Now, I noticed that during the Riverview Neighborhood Association, there was a few folks that were talking about independent leadership on the council. So on that point, if elected to the governing body, or if elected in November for the councilman, who do you think should have the most weight on your decisions? The mayor, your constituents, your colleagues, or someone else, or some combination of that? How do you think that should work ideally?
That's a good question. Well, people would be voting for me. I mean, they're basically my boss. I'm a lawyer, so I always have to do what's in the best interest of the client. I would look at being a council person the same way. I would be obligated to do what's in the best interest of my constituents. And I don't know that a lot of things are non-controversial. Like how do we do a better job picking up trash? How do we have a higher level of public safety? I don't know that all those different stakeholders you're describing, the mayor, constituents, the council, I don't know that they'll have different positions on everything. I'm hoping that
15
things
seconds.
will be fairly self-evident, like what the best solution is to certain problems, and we can move forward without too much, squabbling about things.
All right, thank you.
I believe that as your councilman, I have always put the residents of the Heights first, and I will continue to do that. I'm only beholden, and my only allegiance is to the people of the Heights. And it is, the highest calling of my life to serve as your councilman, because in the middle of this pandemic and during these insane times, do I work cooperatively with the mayor? Yes. Do I work cooperatively with everyone on the council? Yes. Even the independents, I've supported them. And every moment of my life, when I have run for office, like President McNair, President at Rutgers, New Brunswick, President at Rutgers Law School, I always ran as an independent. And I ran as an independent for the Board of Education back in 2017. So I have always governed like that. And I have a friendly
10 seconds.
relationship with everyone on the city council, and that's how you get results done.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
So I think if I had to rank them, it would be my constituents, it would be the council, and it would be the mayor, working collaboratively. Again, this isn't, being a council person isn't just being a watchdog. I think it's working for the benefit of you, the residents, people watching at home. And I could say that, as a community leader, whether it's with Leonard Gordon Park or with quality of life issues, I've always put our residents first. And that's something that I look forward to doing, as whether I'm your councilman or not. At the end of the day, you're the people that live in Ward D. You're the ones that pay your property taxes, pay your rent, shop on Central Avenue. And so, and any chance that we get to bring residents in and bring them to the table and discuss ideas, definitely do 100%.
Thank you.
I actually would like to
Sure,
respond.
please.
So last week we had a candidates forum that was online, and Councilman Saleh at the time, so he championed a very strong version of an inclusionary zoning ordinance, which is supposed to help us with our housing crisis in the Heights. And then 2 days later, there was a much weaker version of the ordinance put before the council, and he voted to introduce it. So I'm not sure he does have people's best interests at heart. And when you say one thing very, very strongly, very
10 seconds.
emphatically, and you do another, that's hypocrisy.
Councilman, would you care to respond?
Of course. And I feel as though the way she characterized that was a mischaracterization, okay? Because both inclusionary zoning ordinances that were proposed really didn't do much for the Heights. If you know, in the Heights, there are a lot of two-family homes, okay? So it's very hard to capture that when you have high-rises that are trying to go up, that would trigger the inclusionary zoning ordinance. The question the people of the Heights have to ask themselves is, do we want to have an inclusionary zoning ordinance at all, or do we want to just keep the status quo?
10
And
seconds.
I'm in favor of an inclusionary zoning ordinance and pushing the football and strengthening it over time.
Yes, please, Patrick.
So, I agree with Cynthia and say that at the forum, he specifically stated he was against buyouts for the inclusionary zoning, and very much so voted for an inclusionary zoning that included these very buyouts that he spoke about. Look, at the end of the day, the Heights has zero affordable housing. And so that's something that we need to start addressing, and we need to start addressing it yesterday. But we're here, and at the end of the day, Councilman Saleh voted to pass an inclusionary zoning ordinance that isn't strong enough for the Heights. And as your next councilman, I look to fight for you, the residents, and really fighting for an increase in affordable housing, not just in the Heights, but in Jersey City overall.
Looks like we've discovered a hot topic. So
I feel like I'm being criticized, like, how could the doer of good deeds have done them better? If they have an idea, if anyone out there has an idea for how to create affordable housing for two-family homes, which is what most of the Heights is comprised of, come to me, let's bring it forward. Because the truth of the matter is, we're facing a situation in the Heights where a lot of two-family homes are being converted into condos. So we need to put our heads together and work on that. But that doesn't mean the rest of the city has to suffer without an inclusionary zoning ordinance.
All right. Well, let's talk about the inclusionary zoning ordinance in front of the council. I believe, Cynthia, it was your turn to start, if I'm not mistaken. So let's talk about this. So there's obviously two proposals that everyone's familiar with at this point, one from the council president, Joyce Waterman, and one from Councilman at Large, Rolando Lavaro. So between these two, which one do you support and why?
Actually, things have changed since then. The administration jumped the gun and put forth, the administration jumped the gun. They put forth their own inclusionary zoning ordinance, and that was what was introduced for a first reading at last week's council meeting, and that was I believe, a weaker, more developer-friendly ordinance than either ordinance being proposed by Lavaro or by Waterman. And I mean, I think even to call it an inclusionary zoning ordinance is a misnomer. It's an exclusionary zoning ordinance. And for Councilman Saleh to say that we only have 2 family homes in the Heights shows his lack of familiarity with the development patterns we have. On Kennedy alone, we've probably had like at least 120 units approved over the past year that are large multifamily projects, and they could have had an affordable housing component, and they don't.
Thank you. Just a clerical point before you respond, Councilman. Yes, the first reading was only one ordinance up, but the councilman, that's Councilman Lavaro, has said that he will introduce amendments before the second reading, so there probably will be 2, but we have to wait and see the agenda. But yes, thank you for pointing that out, just to clarify for everybody's benefit. So, Councilman, please go right ahead.
Number one, I was born and raised in the Heights. Most of the Heights are 2-family homes, okay? There has been a lot of development lately, which the more we spend time going over every little bit of the inclusionary zoning ordinance, the more developments get made. And developers are rushing to get their projects done before we put an inclusionary zoning ordinance in. And it's been a year that we've been discussing this. And I came in towards the latter half, okay? And I'm in favor, and if you've seen the committee meetings, I've been in favor of the strongest inclusionary zoning ordinance that could possibly be made. And I supported Rolando Lavaro and Joyce Waterman. But this highlights the fact that you have to work with your other council members in order to get anything done. And there's a lot of council members that have different ideas about what they want in an inclusionary zoning ordinance. So if there's a political will to pass an inclusionary zoning ordinance, right now I'm in favor of it and strengthening it over time.
Thank you. Patrick, please.
Look, I think that it's, let's build a strong one now, right? Look, you have tier 1. If you're a developer, you can easily pay into the Affordable Trust Fund $2,500. If you look at the rents that are being charged, it's anywhere from $25,000 a month to $3,000 a month. You can easily make that up within a year. We're passing a inclusionary zoning ordinance that's a dream for developers. And look, just saying that you're born and raised in Jersey City and you've seen homes on the street isn't enough. You look at Palisade Avenue, you look at Central Avenue, you look at Kennedy. They're developing. It's 40 units up to 100 units. Passing a strong inclusionary zoning should happen now and not just over time when people change, the administration changes. Another issue with this is there's the buyout provisions to create parks. Now, I'm an open space advocate, but right now the city of Jersey City struggles to maintain its parks. Building another park just so that it can be market rate so that those tenants can enjoy the open space isn't enough for residents here, and we need to pass a strong affordable housing ordinance.
I'm gonna guess there's a follow-up somewhere here.
I think that if you look at the inclusionary zoning ordinance, and I mean you could throw out as many one-liners as you want, but at the end of the day, the developers have called me and told me to vote down any inclusionary zoning ordinance. It's in their best interest that I vote no. And I believe the people of Jersey City, even though this doesn't directly benefit the Heights, even though the last ordinance didn't directly benefit the Heights, that we should still pass something better than nothing. And you have to work with everyone around you in order to get it done. One person can't be an island to themselves. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we suffer from a lot of this in Jersey City, this beggars can't be choosers mentality, which is like, oh, we can go for this crummy, weak version of this or nothing at all. Those aren't the range of choices. And when Councilman Saleh said he wants to collaborate with the council and it's hard to collaborate, the ordinance that was put forth was not the product of collaboration. There were committee meetings held over an entire year that resulted in a near consensus that was a much stronger version of the ordinance. And then the administration jumped forward with its own version. I'm not aware that that was in any sense a collaboration.
Thank you. Patrick, anything?
Yeah, look, I'll simply add that just saying that it's better to have something now than later, it's a terrible mentality, I think, to have as a council person. At the end of the day, we're advocates. We have to advocate for you. We have to advocate for what's best for our ward and for Jersey City overall. This this can be improved, and it should be improved. And I just don't think that Councilman Saleh has the political will. And if developers did call him, they probably said, don't pass it, but if you have to, pass it.
Well, since there
That's
was
a
a direction.
total, like, oh my God, I can't even dignify that with a response. But I will tell you that you have to work with your other council members, and it is very difficult to get it done. And I've been championing, if anyone has seen these inclusionary zoning meetings, I've been championing no buyouts, no concrete playgrounds, no community benefits of any sort. I want a strict 20% affordable
10 seconds.
limit for anything that gets developed. So I think that anyone who sat in those committee meetings will let you know that I have been fighting for the residents of the Heights. And
Councilman, that's time.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, I think we've spent ample time on this one, so I think we're going to move on to another topic. And Councilman, this time you could take lead. So, and we were obviously talking a lot about the taxpayer. Of course, that's what a lot of government is, right? Thinking about the taxpayer. So one could argue there's a lot of redundancy in service between Jersey City and the County of Hudson. We're talking about parks, roads, economic development, and we could probably take up a solid hour just talking about that. So do you have any ideas how this could be amended or updated to benefit the average taxpayer here in the Heights?
I think that we should look to other towns to form joint partnerships with them when it comes to city services and municipal services. And if you look all over New Jersey, we actually have the most municipalities, and everyone has their own little, some municipalities are a block, or 2 blocks long. So we need to work alongside our neighbors to help find those efficiencies and find ways that we can help the taxpayer. Because we have the highest property taxes out of any of the states. New Jersey is a travesty when it comes to property taxes. And as a property owner myself, I want to make sure that your property taxes don't go up.
All right, very good. Thank you. Patrick, you please go ahead.
So I agree that there's room for collaborating, whether it's on our county roads, on our open space. There's definitely room that we can kind of cut the fat a little bit. But if we were really worried about taxpayers, we would have voted to cap the late property taxes during COVID-19, so that homeowners who aren't collecting rent can at least get a little sleep at night. But that didn't happen. The city council actually just voted to keep it at the 18% instead of the 3% that it could have been. So I think when we're looking at taxpayers, it's nice to talk about cities and towns that are 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 4 blocks. But at the end of the day, it's Jersey City, and it's Ward D. And so, anything that can help
15
reduce
seconds.
the fat, we'll definitely do it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me just clarify. The question is about how to help taxpayers?
Well, yeah, through the shared services with the county, because, again, like things like parking, roads, economic development. There's departments in Jersey City and the county, and they both have tax costs related to them. So, I guess what would be a way of trying to eliminate some of those perhaps redundant costs?
Yeah, I see the county's jurisdiction as being very different from the city's. I don't know that there's such an overlap in services. I'm not aware of it, and I've done a lot with the county and I've done a lot with the city. But if it can be done, I would be in favor of it. I just am not sure what we're really talking about here. The county has a welfare department. The county they handle tax appeals. They handle county roads. They have the sheriff's office. I see its duties as being very distinct and kind of very limited, actually, as compared with Jersey City.
All right, fair enough. Anything else? All right, very good. This is, you could argue, has a lot to do with zoning as well, but it's a pretty open-ended question. And I believe we were on Patrick. So what do you think is more important, preserving neighborhood character or preserving quality of life when we're talking about development in the Heights?
It's a tricky question, and I think that it's you kind of toe a line, and you have to be careful with it. So when you're talking about preserving the character of a neighborhood, and you're talking about quality of life, let's say affordability, I think that we have to look at smart development. It's building so that we're able to keep the characteristics of our community and make sure that there's ample parking. But you know, at the end of the day, we're going to have to make sure that there is some sort of affordable housing being built or units throughout Ward D, so that we are able to be a welcoming community to people who, you know, need either affordable housing or people who want to live in Jersey City and, you know, take the path over to New York. So I think it's a rough line to toe, but at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we add inclusionary zoning into whatever we do.
Thank you.
And I see those two things as working together, and my example of that is the reservoir, which I've worked for a very long time on, first to save it from development and now to encourage investment that respects its character, but it enhances everyone's quality of life. For an urban person that maybe doesn't have the option of going to their country house in the Catskills, or kids that don't have a big backyard, this is our countryside. Like, this is our nature preserve, and this is part of the history of the Heights. So it is the character of the neighborhood, and it's simultaneously enhancing our quality of life. So I don't see those two things as being in conflict with one another.
Very good. Councilman?
I don't see it as a zero-sum game where the character of the neighborhood has to be changed in order for progress to happen. My vision as a councilman has that we create affordable housing, that it's sustainable, that we're not doing development for the sake of development, that it's always smart development, that we use permeable pavement. If we go around the Heights, there are areas that do flood, you know, and as your councilman, I've gone on Bowers and Webster, and I've gone on South Street and Pierce Ave, and there are people that are suffering from the antiquated pipes and sewage system. So when we do develop, we have to make sure that we're being inclusive of everyone in the Heights, that we shouldn't be pushing people out. I've seen a lot of my friends that had to leave the Heights because of its unaffordability, and that they should be able to reap the benefits of the community growing and of the progress that we've made in the Heights. They shouldn't have to leave.
All right, great. Any follow-up this time? All right, everyone looks like they're good. So it would be a Jersey City debate if we did talk about the police department, but this is a relatively honed-in question, I believe. So we'll start with Cynthia, I believe. So what do you think some of the main focal points should be for the JCPD of the North District? And would you support layoffs, hires, or neither at this time? Why or why not?
Well, we had this recent episode of gang violence, or it was called gang violence. I tried to inquire about it, and people said, well, it's not really like, it's not organized crime, it's like disorganized crime. But I'm not in favor of new hires. I don't think we should be increasing the budget, especially when we've had so many cutbacks. I'm also not really in favor of layoffs. I do think we would need to really look at staffing, budget, and then the way I would do it is work with the captain or the chief of police to try to get them to make recommendations to me, because I've never run a police department, and I think it would be very arrogant for me to try to say to the police how many police they need, whether the Heights is adequately covered. I would want to work more closely with them so they can help us figure out what we need to do.
Very good. Councilman?
I would not be in favor of layoffs. If you look at the statistics, 43, possibly more officers. Last time I checked, there were 43 that retired. We hired another 21. So we're really not even replacing the police officers at the rate that we should be in order to remain neutral. And if you look at the Heights, we've had a lot of issues these last few weeks. And working alongside the captain, the police chief, and the mayor, we've been able to get 2 additional units. We're doing a lighting study in the area in the affected areas to make sure that it's properly lit. There have been, every person involved in the violence has been arrested with the exception of 1 individual. So this is the kind of partnership that we need, and we need police officers in the Heights as well. Like, they can't keep going to the south side.
Thank you, Councilman. Patrick?
So I think it's an issue and it's a problem that's been going on now for a couple of years where our North District police officers are stationed at other areas in Jersey City. And I get it, it's because there's other areas are probably hotspots. But look, I'm not in favor of necessarily hiring more police officers at the moment. I think we need to look at the structure of our police department and see where we can do better and make sure that everyone's getting their equal services. Because at the end of the day, the Heights is paying property taxes, and if there's supposed to be 10 officers in Ward D, there needs to be 10 officers in Ward D. But the conversation also needs to really go in terms of funding transportation, youth enrichment programs, mental health programs. So I'm definitely in favor of not spending any more on it at the moment until we really look at line item by line item what's being spent on the police budget. And I think it was a good moment during the last budget for Councilman Soleil to bring these issues up, but he didn't. Instead, he abstained from it, which I think with everything that he just said previously,
That's time.
it doesn't show that there's a commitment for our city in terms of policing.
Time, Patrick. Thank you. Councilman, would you care to respond?
Absolutely. And I think that if you actually go and watch the tape of that city council meeting, I did abstain, but Patrick Ambrosi called in at 6 hours, 38 minutes, and 22 seconds in, and he wanted me to defund the police. And I know, and this was before all the shootings happened, and actually a shooting happened that night during the meeting. And we're getting calls to defund the police. And we already know in the Heights that we don't have our fair share. So as your councilman, you could check this off the box.
10
I brought
seconds.
in 2 additional units into the Heights, and now they're on our streets helping patrol the Heights.
Patrick, care to respond?
So I want to clarify that mischaracterization. I actually did not call to defund the police. What I did do was called on why we're defunding our health and human services and defunding our recreation by 47%. At Leonard Gordon Park, we have a soccer program that we have every year. It's a year-round program, and we're a little scared that we might not be able to have it. So I called because at the end of the day, the youth still need an outlet in our city. They still need recreation, and health and human services cutting it 10% during
10
a
seconds.
pandemic. I think it's terrible, and I think that Yusuf, I think saying that I called to defund the police, people can go watch the tapes. I did not say that.
All right. Anything else on this subject?
The words youth, the words soccer, the words recreation didn't come out of his mouth during that speech, okay? It's on Twitter, he posted it. He thanked everyone that spoke about defunding the police. We have unique problems here in the Heights, and we need our services, just like everyone else who pays property taxes in Jersey City. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'll respond to that and just say I'm glad you're stalking me, but look, at the end of the day, evidence is there. You're able to go and see for yourself. And I've talked to police officers who live in our ward, and that's not the case. And if anything, I've said at the very least, there needs to be a hiring freeze, just like there is everywhere else in the city at the moment. So I just think this is it's a cheap shot, and I'm not really going to answer any further.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything on this topic? Alrighty then. So I think we could move on to another topic then. So, and I believe we're up to the councilman, so you could lead off here. And so occasionally I hear from residents who say that there are ample illegal apartments in the Heights, and this is something that only happens when there's a fire, there's a drug bust, unfortunately when somebody passes, whether it's drug or violence related. Anyway, so the point is, what do you think we could do about those kind of quality of life issues that could lead to greater issues like public safety issues in the Heights?
I'm glad you asked me that question because as your councilman, I've actually been working with the community to address these issues. If you go on the western slopes, we had an issue with Airbnbs and some houses that were being used as drug houses. And oftentimes the landlords don't live in the area. So I will find the landlord, call the landlord, and let him know. I said, listen, like you have a Airbnb or you have a house that's being used to disseminate drugs in the community. And you have to either rent it out long-term to a family, you have to sell it, you gotta do something. But the status quo that is happening right now is not gonna continue. We've had stabbings at these Airbnbs where there are drugs being dealt. We've had issues with property damage with the neighbors. So I have people, the residents who I've been
15
working
seconds.
with, can attest to the results that I've had as the councilman. Thank you.
Thanks, Yusef. Patrick?
John, would you be able to repeat the question again?
Yeah. So some people in the Heights have brought up to me that they believe that there's a lot of illegal apartments in the Heights, and this is something that only gets attention when something else goes wrong, like a fire, a drug bust, a fatality of some sort. So what do you think is a way to address these alleged illegal apartments and prevent it from escalating into something that's a bigger public safety issue?
So first of all, it's enforcement, right? The city of Jersey City just got the Quality of Life Task Force, and hopefully, they'll be able to make a dent in that area. But I think when you look at who habits these illegal units, for the most part, it's Latinos. It's people who necessarily might not be U.S. citizens, and we want to make sure that we're being open as a council person. That we're reaching out to people and making sure that they know the laws and they know the rules. But I also think that there's a couple of updates that we can make in the zoning ordinances to see if maybe there are some ways to turn what is a safe illegal apartment into a legal apartment, where then their property
15
taxes
seconds.
are higher, and that provides more services for us, the residents.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, I'm not in favor of illegal apartments, mostly because it's more of I don't see it as a public safety issue. I see it as a safety issue. Like, if you're desperate enough to go live in a legal apartment, it's probably because the rent is lower. You might not have a proper, two means of egress so that you can get out of the apartment. If there's, a fire, there might be maybe it hasn't been inspected, or the heating has been illegally installed also, so there might be a problem with carbon monoxide. So I'm actually more concerned about protecting the people who would need to live in an illegal apartment than about the public safety. And I think this assumption that an illegal apartment leads to a public safety issue, I think it's kind of outrageous. If you're desperate enough to live in an illegal apartment, it's probably because you don't have a lot of options. Putting the onus on the landlord to fight drug trade is also something I just can't even wrap my head around. It's not the landlord's problem.
Okay.
So-
sure. Go. So Patrick was first.
So yeah, look, I absolutely agree with that, and like I said, most of the people that are probably doing it are probably illegals and undocumented citizens, and we want to make sure that there's resources for them. And as councilman, I'm looking forward to having an office where you can come and speak to me, and we can address your issues. But yeah, it's definitely not on the onus of the landlord. I think Saleh had put it on the onus of the landlords at the last shooting, which I think is disrespectful for people who are, decide to invest in Jersey City, who are small
10
homeowners
seconds.
of 1 or 2 family homes. And at the end of the day, background checks like that are, one, illegal, and it's not really the commonplace for us to be able to do something like that. So,
Time.
thank you.
Yes.
1, criminal background checks are not illegal, okay? 2, if the landlord, and any landlord out there watching, is unaware that their property that they Airbnb'd is being used for illegal activity, and I as the councilman don't notify you that there have been concerns from your neighbors coming to me, then I have abdicated my duty as a councilman. Okay, I am here to communicate those issues and work with the community.
10 seconds.
And that is what I've been doing. And the people of the Heights can attest to these results, okay? They want affordable housing, but then they want to keep the situation with the Airbnb. Like, I told the landlord, please,
Time.
rent it out to a family.
Yes.
First of all, so let's say the landlord does the criminal background. It would be discrimination to tell them that they cannot rent because of their criminal past, whether they served prison time or on probation. You can't do that. So yeah, to make it to make it seem like landlords have to do it, it's not an enforceable thing. And I think that that's the difference. You can call the landlord and say, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that.
15.
There's very little that Councilman Saleh can actually enforce in that. What we need to start doing is improving our affordable housing in the Heights, improving our transportation, improving our programming. That's what's going to lead to a better community in more deeds.
Time.
It's not necessarily asking for
Time,
criminal
Patrick.
background checks.
I don't think Patrick has ever, managed a property, So he might not know the kind of issues that come into place. But you basically have to do a lot more than do a criminal background check when you try and get an apartment. And actually, it's really, I work with single mothers. I work with people who are looking for housing every day. Okay, so I called the landlord, I did my due diligence, and I said, listen, like, take that Airbnb off and rent it out to a family.
15.
And I think that, you know, I don't know if he's ever rented anywhere, but you have to go through a certain thing. I don't know if he'd want to rent to an axe murderer in his apartment, but, you know, I wouldn't. But you should do your due diligence as a landlord.
Time. Cynthia, you look like you have something to say.
Councilman Slay might want to respond to this, but I was under the impression that he lived in a basement apartment, and it might not be legal.
No, it's actually legal, and it's very legal to do it. So you're a lawyer, right? So
Yeah,
you should know that.
well, sometimes it is,
Owner-occupied
sometimes it's not.
basement, and it's actually sad that she had to bring up someone's personal life, but I do live in my basement, and that is legal. And I am astonished that that even came up.
Okay, Patrick?
Look, I'm surprised that you're astonished at anything at this point. I mean, he's attacked me and not being able to manage properties. I actually have. And again, if Soleil wants to bring in a Ward D that discriminates against people's past, then that's fine. That's the Ward D you're going to get. But at the end of the day, if someone that you're renting to does have a criminal past, you're not able to just kick him out. You know, at the end of the day, we're trying to build a compassionate community here
10
in Ward D.
seconds.
And
No one
that's
say
just not
kick
the way.
anyone.
Don't cut
That's
him
just
off.
not the way to do it. And so, you know, look, he's a lawyer himself. Well, he went to law school, but look, he doesn't know the law clearly.
Time.
Anyone who's a lawyer watching this, please go look up whether someone can live in their own apartment or basement if you own the home, which is
I didn't
true.
say anything. I
Anyways,
didn't say anything of that
Hey, don't cut him
contrary,
off, don't cut him
so-
off.
Anyways, okay, like they're completely off base. That's right, that you can't kick someone out once you have helped them establish domicile in your apartment. But all landlords should do their due diligence. No one's saying discriminate, follow the laws. But if someone has a rap sheet longer than a CVS receipt, then, you know, beware. That's it. That's all I can tell you as a landlord. Like, you brought it on yourself if you don't do your due diligence. And you do due diligence
10
in
seconds.
banking,
Always
you do
blame the
diligence
landlord.
everywhere.
Thank you. Okay, all right. I
I
think,
think we've exhausted that.
yes, I think that's a good amount of time on that subject for sure. So, as you guys are well aware, there's been, and we're back around to Patrick, we've done ample paving in the Heights recently, and this gets rid of a lot of parking spots. And, you know, really parking in general, we haven't touched on much. So when we're talking about everything aside from the proposed parking deck on Central, what do you think could be done to give residents some relief and some more options for parking in the Heights, you know, to avoid some of these tickets and other inconveniences?
So that question's to
Yeah,
me.
you could start.
So look, it's an issue that they especially have in the Western Slope. I think that continuing the partnership with public schools so that they're able to use the parking lots, it has been a godsend for many residents. So I think we need to kind of continue that partnership and see where else we can find partnerships with you know, local homeowners who are looking to rent out their garage. And really the issue comes down into enforcement. I've gone down to, you know, Ogden Avenue and all the way to Terrace Avenue where, you know, people say, hey, you know, I'm paying my fee for my parking, and then here's someone with different license plates who doesn't have anything, and you know, they're not getting ticketed, they're not getting removed, and it's costing my quality of life to go down. I just spoke to a
15
couple,
seconds.
and they're actually going to be moving because of it. So I think we have to start looking at partnerships in terms of you know, parking spaces throughout the Heights.
Thank you. Cynthia?
Yeah. Well, one of the things we already did to try to deal with the parking problem is we started having zone parking, but I think there are still a lot of people who are commuters who are going into the city who are parking in what should be spots for residents of the Heights. There probably needs to be better enforcement on the zone parking. And then a lot of people have brought up the fact that new construction, there's sort of this schizophrenic policy. If you have an older home, you're not allowed to create front yard parking in your older home, there's a moratorium on that. But if it's new construction, you're allowed to do a curb cut and kind of privatize your parking there. I think we should have one uniform policy for everybody. The curb cut thing was tailor written, and this was under before Philip's tenure as mayor, but it was tailor written for the developer lobby. So I think we should examine that. And it's just the numbers. If we have how many spaces, how many cars. If you have more cars than spaces, and you're not either reducing cars or increasing spaces, you've got a problem.
Time. Councilman?
There's you have to tackle this problem from all angles, okay? So we have about 500 people that come into the Heights every day. They're working in the Heights, and we are building a parking deck to make sure that when they park in the day, they're incentivized to park in the parking deck, okay? And then during the evenings, that parking deck will be utilized by residents. During the weekends, it'll be utilized by residents. Then comes the enforcement. I've driven around Ogden Avenue. I've driven around the western slopes with committee folk, and they have showed me, and I counted, no less than 20 license plates from out of state. Florida, Michigan, like you name the state, basically it's there. So you have a 50-50 shot of getting it. Anyways, after that, we need to look at the master plan, which is happening right now. We need to make sure automatic curb cuts are a thing of the past. We can't allow new constructions to automatically get a magical parking space in front of their house. It's decimating our neighborhood.
Okay, anything further?
Yeah, so I'm 100% for the automatic curb cut. It's something that has been advocated for in Ward D for a couple of years now. And as I walk the Western Slope, and even just from being at the park, there's new construction going up every day, and it's just eating up the off-street parking. And it's something that is forcing people to leave. So we definitely, I'm definitely 100% supportive of getting rid of the automatic curb cut and taking it an individual approach. In terms of the parking deck, we want to make sure that we stay on top of it and make sure that it's going to be open to the public and not the three developments that they're going to have in front of it. I think it's great for Central Avenue, but we just have to make sure that it's going to be good for the people of Ward D.
All right, very good. Anybody else? Just a real quick follow-up. So I think part of the reason that we're seeing this, I mentioned the paving briefly, some of this is because of the bad backfills, and then something will get paved at like the first week of the month or the last week of the month. It needs to be repaved again. So what do you think we could do to fix this? And we could start with you, Councilman.
Thank you for asking me that. We've actually been working alongside PSE&G and Suez to make sure that before we do any pavements for any roads, that we correspond with them and we say, hey, are there any projected plans to upgrade the maintenance here for, let's say, PSE&G or for Suez? And if that's the case, we're not going to pave that road, okay? And then if it's the case that there are no projected plans or they've already been completed, then we will go ahead and pave that road. If you see what happened with Central Avenue, we did all the PSE&G modernization projects along Central Avenue.
15.
And then next year, we're going to repave all of Central Avenue after the streetscape. The final pin, the final star on top of the tree, we're going to pave the street after the streetscape is done.
Thank you.
So I'm 100% in favor of there being more collaboration with PSE&G in terms of infrastructure that needs to be repaired and in terms of streets that we're doing. But at the end of the day, emergencies happen. You're not going to be able to control everything. And we just have to make sure that the job that's being done to fill the potholes is it's good. I mean, usually for the most part, it's sinkholes will appear or it's unleveled, which damages your car. So we just want to make sure that there's the due diligence of coordinating with PSE&G and then the due diligence for our city to make sure that we're filling in the potholes correctly and we're doing that in a way that's good for our residents.
Thank you. Cynthia?
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like we're paying for the same job to be done more than once. It does speak of like bad communication, bad planning. I don't like, even like the the drains, like that are in the corners. I've seen the drains on Central, just on my corner, which is Zabriskie and Central. I've seen those dug up since I've lived here, like almost every year. I mean, I almost wonder if they want to just be awarding contracts for the same work over and over and over again. So I'm not even sure it's necessary when they keep repaving things. I do know, what I was told is that a lot of the work
15.
To do some of the side streets, it was mandatory because there were gas leaks. It wasn't the city's idea. PSE&G forced the city to take care of it because it does have such old infrastructure and it was being negligent.
Okay. Any follow-up from anyone?
Our infrastructure is outdated. You know, that's it's going to take $1 billion at least to upgrade the sewer systems here in the Heights. And every time it gets dug up, you know, in the past they would repave, then it gets dug up again. And, you know, I've eliminated that. And actually we have an agreement where if it gets dug up after we've paved, the PSE&G or Suez would have to come in and repave everything. So we've taken care of that.
Okay. Anything else? All right, so I'm still going to let you guys do your closing statements, of course, but I just want to say we're going to be running just slightly over, so I want to say goodbye to our Comcast viewers. Thank you for tuning in. You can see the rest on our Facebook pages. And with that, you guys can do your closing. And since we started with Patrick, I believe, right, for opening, we will let Cynthia go, and we'll go this way. So you guys have 2 minutes apiece if you care to use it. So please, by all means, let us hear your final thoughts.
Yeah, so at the beginning, I just talked about how can you really tell the difference between the candidates, because we don't have these like strong ideological differences on a few things, but not on most things. But I think, you know, and Yusuf, Councilman Slay sounds good, but if you listen really to what he's saying, there's a lot of we did this, we did that, and the things he's taken responsibility for in the few months he's been the council person. He took responsibility for the COVID response, to grants to small business, for the Central Avenue streetscape improvement, for fighting crime and gang violence. I think I've seen things on Facebook where he's going around with the graffiti removal team. He's got a chainsaw after a storm cutting up branches. And I hope that the voters in Ward D are discerning enough to understand that a council person who was appointed, who's only been in office a few months, should not be credited with all of these things. Many of them are the duties of the regular city employees and the city administration, or they are things that were in the works for years and years, long before he ever had any political aspirations. So, and then I think the difference between Patrick and I is mostly that I'm more experienced, more mature. We both like parks, but the park I've worked on, we were trying to create a new park and save it from development. It's not quite the same as advocating for some improvements to an already existing park. So we might seem like
15.
we're both park people. We might seem like we're both lawyers. I'm a practicing attorney who took and passed the bar exam. Yusuf works on Wall Street. So there are some real differences between the candidates. Thank you.
Thanks, Cynthia. Councilman?
I want to thank everyone who's watching tonight. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your councilman during these unprecedented times. And I have to agree, Cynthia is right. I couldn't have done this by myself. And I've had the stellar, Jersey City employees that have helped and have coordinated all this and worked with me and guided me along the way and wanted to see me succeed, to help me get the COVID testing for residents that need it, to canvass the businesses and coordinate translators for people that need a translator apply for the business grant. So I have done as much as humanly possible as the councilman in order to work with these different organs of government. And you want someone who's going to work with the mayor, who's going to work with the city council, who's going to work with every lever of government in order to get the results that the people of the Heights deserve. And I love this community, and my heart is always going to be in this community, and I am proud to serve you. And I anticipate and I hope you will vote 1M for Yusuf J. Saleh so I can continue serving you. Thank you.
Very good, Councilman. And Patrick, please wrap us up.
Thank you for everyone that's watching at home. Thank you, John, for moderating. My name is Patrick Ambrosi. I'm a lifelong Jersey City resident. And yeah, you know, Cynthia and Soleil have definitely contrasted differences among themselves. I don't think they did fair by me. I'll say this, for the last decade and a half, I've been on the ground making sure that we see improvements in our community, whether it's in open space, whether it's in quality of life issues, whether it's in government. Truthfully, I have the most governmental experience and the most civic experience than my opponents here. But look, at the end of the day, we're going to have to fight for an affordable Jersey City, a Jersey City that's sustainable and equitable for all. And I look forward to having your vote. You know, feel free to look up my website, www.patrickambrosi.com, my Facebook as well. Look, it would be an honor to be elected as your councilperson, as the first Latino in Ward D, to represent people who are minorities in the community. So I definitely look forward to having your vote. My ballot position is 1L, and thank you so much.
Very good, Patrick. First of all, let me thank Patrick, Cynthia, and Councilman Soleil for participating. It was a pleasure to host you guys. Thank you for Hudson Media Group. Obviously, it's always a pleasure to be in the studio. You know, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jonathan. You know, we couldn't do it without you. You know, and finally, just want to say thank you, everyone who watched. You know, we'll see what happens on November 3rd, and I'll see you next week when I'm back in the studio for Hudson County View Live and Uncut. Everybody have a great night. I'll take a pic.
You want to do mask on or off?
You could do off if you're so kind.
Oh, we
Oh,